Okay, in this video I'm going to show how to investigate the architectural model for important information. The first step is not to go into the MEP model, it's actually to go into the architectural model, and there's a few things that I want to investigate before I actually go into my MEP model to set it up. Now it's important never to open an Revit model from the Explorer. I don't want to double click this model right here. I want to go to Revit and I want to open it from there. So I'm just going to copy this path. I'm going to say File, Open. And there is my architecture. And I'm not going to save this model. I'm not going to make any changes to it. But just to avoid it giving me errors, I'm going to click Detach from Central because it is a central model on the architect server, but not here. So it'll get confused and might not let me do some things. So I'm just going to check Detach from Central as I open the architectural model. And I do want to preserve the work sets because they might be using their work sets to control visibility. And I will want to know that if they are, so I don't want to discard those work sets. Okay, so I have a list of specific information that I'm looking for in the architect's model, which I'll go through, but I also will just browse through their model. I'll look through their project browser, I'll look at some 3D views, and I'll just get generally familiar with their model, how it's set up, what state it's in, and the like. So I might go create a 3D view and see what's going on here. Looks like the scope box is cutting it for some reason, but that's interesting. I can kind of look at that. So let me just pull it out so I can see the whole building. There we go. And I can pan around. By the way, I'm holding Shift and then middle mouse button to rotate. I'm just checking it out, seeing what's going on, getting an overall sense for this building. Lots of curtain walls, 3 stories, flat roof, some skylights over here. You know, I'm thinking I can't put any roof equipment too close to that stuff. Thinking about my 10-foot offsets. So just getting a gist for this, both from a designer's perspective and from a overall Revit model perspective. Okay, I've got some trees. I might need to turn those off, and some site plans and some parking lot stuff. Okay, so that's good. I've kind of checked that out. Now I come over here to the project browser and I see how they've got it organized pretty simply. You know, this is the straight out of the box Autodesk sample project. They didn't spend too much time on it, so sort of a good news. I get to not have to spend too much time looking at it because there's not a lot to look at. We've only got 2 sheets, floor plan and some sections. So this isn't actually that bad that it's not that complete because it's somewhat representative of a very early stage model that you might get at early SDs, something like that. And the architect simply isn't, you know, their model isn't fully fleshed out yet because it's early in design. So okay, so that's fine. Now I'm going to start going through my list of information, my checklist of information to check out. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if it's what I do on this project, I'm going to steal their title block. So it's common practice to take the architect's title block, edit it, add your own logo onto it, and use that for the project. So to do that, you just come in here, click on their the title block sheet, come up to the ribbon and say Edit Family. And then I'm not going to bother putting all my information in right now, modifying it. I'm just going to save it out. So File, Save As. And I'm going to put it in the Families folder. I'm just going to save it there, and I can deal with that later in Setup. Close that 3D model. Okay. So now I want to check and see if they're doing any phase mapping stuff. So Manage tab, Phases. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for anything that's not out of the box. And if you've never seen this before, you won't know, but having an existing and a new construction phase, that's out of the box. I'm going to look at the phase filters. This also looks out of the box to me. Show all, show complete, demo new, new, previous, demo, previous, new, show previous phase. Those phase filters out of the box, and the graphic overrides also look, there's nothing very funky or fancy going on here. Something to watch out for in particular is if the architect has added a phase called demo. It's not good practice. It's not how the phasing system is designed to work. But if they have done that, then you have to note that because you might have to deal with it to get their model to look correct on your sheets if you have to deal with phasing. But this model is out of the box, so nothing to note here, nothing out of the ordinary. Now we're going to look for scope boxes, and how I do that is I just create a new floor plan, which is kind of a default floor plan, and they don't have any funky types in here, so that's the standard, and I create the floor plan on whatever the equivalent of level 1 is. And then I'm going to go into visibility graphics, that's shortcut VG, and I'm going to look for scope boxes. By the way, how I snap to that is I just started typing scope, so SC, and it took me down close to scope boxes, and I see that it's checked. So if there were scope boxes in this view, I could see them because they'd be green dashed boxes. I don't see any, so they aren't using any, so that's all right. Use of dependent views. Is the architect using any dependent views? We'll go a little bit more in depth as to what that is, but so you know what that looks like, it would look like that. So a primary and a child, or a dependent view, they're linked in terms of annotation properties. So if I put a bit of text or a tag or anything of that nature, changed any visibility graphic settings in this view, it does the same here. And I can have multiple, you can have multiple dependent views. So they would look like that. And these can have different crop regions. But other than that, they will look exactly the same. And so they're used for doing area plans and that sort. So if the architect is doing that, I want to know because I might copy their schema for doing that. But if they aren't, then I don't have to worry about it. And this architect is not, so I'm not worrying about it. The next thing I'm going to look for is which views I want to point at, which do I want to use for when I set my views in my model to by linked view. That'll make more sense when we go through it. But basically what this means is look at their sheets, find the sheet that shows the floor plans that you want to have your own version of. So this is the floor 1 floor plan. It's not an RCP, it's not some weird furniture plan, it's the basic architectural floor plan, and the name of that view is 01-entry level. So this is an early model, they don't have all of the sheets set up, but I can go through here in the views and I can look at O2 floor, and this is also the basic overall level 2, and this is the overall level 3. And this is the roof. There's not a whole lot of options, so these are kind of the obvious ones. But in a typical model, the architect is going to have a lot of different floor plans and views, so you need to go through and identify which ones you want, because you will be pointing at them by name from your own model, and you need to know which floor plans to choose. Otherwise, you're just sort of guessing and checking. Okay, so we're going to use O1 entry level, not the furniture layout one, and we're going to use these O2, O3, and roof. So for my own purposes, I'm going to highlight those, and I'm going to take a screenshot of those. Here it is. And I'm not going to save it or anything. I'm just going to put it on my other monitor for now. I will come back to it and refer to it in a few minutes when I'm doing the model setup in my own model. Okay. That is the which views to point at for by linked view. Then I'm going to check their project base point, survey point, and make sure that there's nothing too crazy going on there. So back to this view that I made, and I'm going to go into visibility graphics. I'm going to go down to the site category, and I want to check internal origin, project base point, and survey point, and hit OK. And they're all right here. So the green and red arrows, that's the Revit internal origin. That's the 000 point of this model. It's non-modifiable. And then if you click the circle, that's the project base point. You can see in this model that's all 0. And if I tab select the triangle, that's the survey point, and we can see that that's all at 0. It's very common for the architects to just leave this the way it is, to not mess with these and leave them at 0, in which case you don't have to do anything. If these did have different values, I would take a screenshot of it, of those values, so that I knew what they were, so that I could check that it all worked out in my own model. It's kind of a big topic. I'm going to have a separate video on dealing with this in this series. We don't have to worry about it because it's simple, it's 0. The one thing that I will do is I'll take a screenshot of where these points are in relation to just the overall building, just so that I can have a quick visual check in my own model that everything is showing up where it should be. But I expect that to be no problems. Okay, so that's project base point. And now we're going to check out the levels. So I'm just going to open up a section and look at the levels that they have. Now, a lot of times architects will have a whole bunch of levels that they're using for a variety of architect-y reasons. And we don't need to concern ourselves with all of them. But I do like to come in here and identify the ones that I will be interested in. And for me, typically that's just going to be, the finished floor levels and the roof. So in this one, I'm noting, okay, pretty simple, 01, 02, 03, and the roof, and I'm pretty much going to ignore the parapet level. So this is so simple, I'm not even going to take a screenshot of it. And then again, I'm going to look at the sheets for the sheet numbering and naming convention for adhering to for my own sheets. And if there was anything, well, I'll just do this. I would take a screenshot of it so that I could refer to it. Pretty simple in this one, but at least I can see what they're doing, A1, A2, etc. So I will make a decision about how to number and name my own sheets based on the architects, and that's that's by firm, that's by project standards. Don't listen to me to tell you how to name and number your sheets. You've got to figure that one out on your own. I'm sure you've got a good handle on it. And that's all I need to do. That's all the information that I need from the architect's model. So I'm done here, and I can close this model. And I don't need to save it. It's going to ask me to save. I'm going to say no, don't want to save it. Generally, I don't like to make any edits to the architect's model. I don't want to delete anything or mess around with it. So I'm just going to leave it the way it is. Okay, that's what I need to do in the architect's model.